Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Panther Pod. Today we are here with Dr. Ed Day and Ella, his research assistant, and today we're talking about fear. So, do you want to kick us off with the fear survey, what we've been doing at Chapman for 10 years now?
Actually, it's 12. Yeah,
12.
We've got 12 years now. And actually 11 years of the actual survey because we did have a pandemic.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, and so, there was one year where we did have to let it slip. Yeah, fear survey started, as I said, we just did the 12th round, or 11th round in 12 years. What people don't actually know about the fear survey is that it started as a student project. And we've kept it going. But the first fear survey came out of an interterm course that Dr. Bader, current chair of sociology, ran, and with the students sat down and said, what is it that we think people are afraid of? You know, at that time, everybody said, well, you know, the biggest fear is public speaking, you know, and a lot of people, they ran public speaking courses and that was their prime advertisement thing. When we came out and said, actually, that's not really true, we got a lot of blowback from the people who ran those businesses. But of course, it really wasn't. People are afraid of a lot of other things. So, sat down with the students in this interterm course, said, what do we think people are afraid of? What would we like to ask people that we were afraid of? And that's where we came up with that first list. Then as a social scientist, you know, we in sociology, faculty and political scientists sat down and said, okay, if we're looking at this, what are likely correlates? What are the things we would like to look at? Fleshed out the survey from that point. Got fascinating results and said, let's keep this going. For the next 2 years, we continued it as an interterm course, kind of expanding, changing, editing what our list of fears should be. After that point, it was kind of like, you know, our first 3 classes of students did such a good job, we don't need to run it as a class anymore. But we've been working with Henley Lab students ever since.
So it's a unique opportunity too, because we were talking about, this is almost a graduate level of education, how hands-on it is with the students, right?
That's what a lot of people miss, is that really, when we run the survey, the data stay within Chapman for the first year, and then we release it to the general public, which, by the way, you know, 1 year out, that's actually pretty generous when you talk to the way social science data gets used in general. People usually keep it longer. But for a year, we keep it within the university, mainly so our students and our faculty can use it first and get it out. And our students do use it. They use it for their senior theses. They use it to present at professional conferences. And what's cool about it is that over here in the Henley Lab, we work directly with students one-on-one while they do their analyses and prepare these things. And students actually are getting presentations at professional conferences. I'm working on a paper with a student now that I'm sure will get published. And it's a one-on-one experience that honestly, you really would only get in graduate school. So students are getting a graduate school experience right now, and for students who want to go on, they are so far ahead. And we get that feedback from students who do go on. And Ella, you can probably talk about that experience.
Exactly that. I think I've been working on the fear survey since my sophomore year, and now I'm using it to write my capstone, and I'm also working on a different project that I'm presenting at a conference later this month, actually. But it's been an amazing experience, and advancing my research ability while being able to work with professors and with the Henley Lab team is such a remarkable experience. Like, it really is not something that you normally do in undergrad, and it is setting me up for success for my grad school visions. And so, yeah, it's an amazing experience, and getting to work with professors that have been dedicating their lives to these things and being able to kind of put my own knowledge into it, and also running things and being so fascinated by the fear survey. Like, we were saying earlier that I could run correlations between this fear survey forever and never get bored of it, because there's so many interesting things to find specifically conspiracy theories and just how those connect to the world and what's going on right now is so fascinating. And I love to tell my friends, like, did you know that this percentage of adults in America are afraid of this, or that they believe in this conspiracy theory? So yeah, it's been an amazing experience, and I love working with both the Fear Survey and the Henley Lab.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your findings right now with the Fear Survey and what your thesis is working towards and the conclusions that you're coming to find?
Yeah, so I'm working on 2 projects right now. One of them is for the conference in November, and it talks about conspiracy theories, specifically weather manipulation and chemtrails, and the belief in those, plus how social media influences kind of the findings and belief in those. It's fascinating to see how many people, 1, believe in these conspiracy theories, and 2, how political figures and influential figures in our world are kind of creating that cycle of belief. And interesting to look into people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and how big of a platform she has on social media and what she's putting out about conspiracy theories like chemtrails, talking about like how could you not believe it? There's evidence, things like that, that is not founded and backed up by research, but 3.4 million people have seen this video and taken it. We are so influenced by our social media. There's a conspiracy theory on the Fear Survey that's completely made up, and it's the South Dakota crash. And there's like a 43% of people agree that the government is concealing information about this big crash. So I think that goes into sharing a little bit about like how fears come about.
I just wanted to add again, the South Dakota crash, there is no such thing. That is something we came up with here and say, well, we need some sort of conspiracy that didn't exist, and just throw it on the survey to see how many people say, oh yeah, I believe in that one. There is no South Dakota crash out there. and so we put that on in the original survey and been running it since then to see what's going. Now I think we may have to come up with something new for future surveys, because it was last year when I started to dig around, and I think we're accidentally creating it.
No, there are things on social media that talk about
the South Dakota crash. Now, I think people, it's because of our survey, people are going, well, was there a South Dakota crash? And so now there may actually be a conspiracy about the South Dakota crash. It's emerging. And that could be a research project in itself. And that how did this emerge? Because we know it started here with something that we stuck on a survey. But so yeah, we may have to have a new false conspiracy for next year.
But it's so interesting to see that the percentage of people that agree with something that is so fake and so made up.
Yeah.
And how like that is just we can tell so many things about like people almost just passively agreeing with something or being afraid of something because this isn't real.
So could we talk about how modern mediums like social media and podcasts, and essentially a lot of influential figures who don't have a background in journalism, or maybe ones that do but understand that clickbait and titles that sway controversy over just delivering information, have created fears that don't really align with reality?
Yeah, one of my main findings in my research is that the more frequently someone receives news from social media, the more they believe in conspiracy theories, and the highly agreeable, I guess, they are to these conspiracy theories. So I think that social media in general, has a way of framing things to grab the audience, using clickbait or other things that really allow people to understand kind of what message they're trying to put out, and not essentially like the real message that they're trying to put out, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. For me, I'm a criminologist. I study crime, I study criminal justice, been at it for a lot of decades. And what I've learned is that people's fear of crime really has nothing to do with the crime rates at all. It has to do with what they're being told they should be afraid of. Learned this really before we ever started the fear survey. I spent the early part of my career thinking, hey, if we reduce crime rates, people will feel better about the world. Well, we did. If you actually look at crime rates from the 90s on into the early 2000s, we kicked crime's ass. We did. Crime rates are down more by half. We did. It was an incredibly successful time, and yet people didn't notice.
Right.
People started to. As you look in the late 90s on how people feel about crime, it wouldn't be from our surveys, we weren't running it yet, but you're looking at Gallup polls and things, you start to see people feeling better about crime coming down, throughout the 90s until you get to 9/11.
Yeah.
And at that point, boom, there's the inflection. Now, if you actually look at crime rates, they continue declining pretty much all the way until you get around, pretty much until you get close to the pandemic. But fear of crime starts going up at that point. And why is it? Because, well, from then on you're told you need to be afraid. From here on out you need to be afraid. We're all going to be afraid of everything from here on. People will believe that rather than numbers. So that's what you need to be afraid of, is how you're manipulated by the media. And the way to get out of that fear is to say, is this true? And go look up numbers yourself. But people, I don't know, are they afraid of numbers? Are they afraid of data? And would they rather just be told what to think? We're working on B right now, and you can tell that by simply looking at the fear data.
Right, so I think what you guys are proposing is that observing the media isn't enough now. The media is a jumping off point into you having to do your own research. Is that kind of the final goal of the fear survey, is to tell people that media isn't something just to consume?
Yeah, I don't know if it was our goal, but you can certainly draw that conclusion from it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say that we are completely inundated with so much information on social media and just consistently around us. So I think that critically thinking about things and understanding that is really important, and I agree that is definitely a conclusion that could be drawn.
Yeah, it seems that media is telling you what to think. It's not telling you why to think it or
how
to think it. Yeah.
We have questions on the survey about specific media sources, and it's interesting, running those. I don't remember exact findings, but interesting to see that a lot of the times there's not that much divide between if you're receiving media from BBC or Fox News. A lot of those are not extremely polarizing. I mean, in certain situations they may be, but yeah, I don't know how else to answer that.
For
Well, I
sure.
can say we've got in the latest round of data from the survey last year, working with another student who's looking specifically at that question right now on are people going to buy into conspiracies, and she's looking at legacy media ones, and we saw no effect of any of the major news outlets like say CNN, or didn't see an effect for MSNBC. Did see a strong effect for Fox News in terms of buying into conspiracy theories. So there you go.
So why don't we jump into the actual findings of the survey? Specifically, what we were talking about is the number one fear right now is of government corruption. And obviously there's a lot of concern with that right now. But this probably isn't the first time in American history that there's been such question about a corrupt government.
Yeah, well, the thing with government corruption, and first let me make a distinction. It pops up to number one because most people are afraid of it. That doesn't mean that it's the thing that people are most afraid of.
I see.
That's most people are reporting, this is what I'm afraid of, but they're probably more afraid of someone they love dying. So
Right. So that was number two on
that was number two on the list. But a majority of the population will report they are afraid of corrupt government officials. Now, I think the reason that pops up to the top is that everybody's afraid of the other side. So,
Interesting.
the Democrats think the Republicans are corrupt, the Republicans think the Democrats are corrupt, and it's because both sides try to use fear to raise money for themselves, and so they're constantly attacking the others. We're not seeing from either side right now a whole lot of positive statements. Here's what I'm going to do to make the world better. You're seeing a whole lot of here's what the other side is doing to make the world worse. And those are messages which inspire fear rather than inspiring optimism or where can we go from here.
Yeah, and you can see that on social media during campaigns too, of almost othering the other side and not exactly talking about like their goals and their mission in office or in elected positions, and it's very much just creating more division in our society. And yeah, it's about 69.1% of American people strongly believe or strongly agree with the fact that there's corruption in the government. So.
And again, do you blame the parties or do you blame the consumers? They're doing this because we react to that. People will vote more based on fear than based on some sort of positiveness, like, oh, they're bad, let's go vote for that, and that gets people to the polls, and so the parties continue to return to that. As opposed to say, like, hey, if we move this way, the world will be a better place, that will motivate me to go to the polls. For some reason, that's not getting people off their butts.
Well, that's the whole thing with why Prop 50 is the big hot button issue in California right now, right? It's such an easy thing to say either way that's rigging an election that everyone's going to go out to the polls, and people don't care as much about smaller issues as something big like government corruption, and either way you're able to claim that.
Yeah, in fact, that's probably a perfect example. You don't see either side talking about that proposition in a positive way. Both sides are talking like, if we don't do this, the bad guys on the other side will take control. It's a negative campaign on both sides, and that's what we see.
Yeah, the message. Yeah, agreed. The messaging and the framing behind it is very much polarizing between the two.
So then, number 2 being fear of someone you love dying. That kind of gives us a little bit more hope in humanity that's our...
We care about each other. At the bottom line, when we're talking about the people that are close to us, yeah, that matters. So maybe the answer is, let's expand that and care about more people.
So are there any fears that you guys didn't really expect to be such hot button issues that really popped up a lot?
Well, again, it was the second year where we added that corrupt government officials to the survey. I did not expect that to be number 1, and it's been number 1 every year it's been in there. So that's still the one that kind of like, whoa.
So even since, I feel like around the 2016 election, that's when the media got more savvy in making the government more exciting on the news, if that makes sense. Even before that, we were seeing that was the number 1 fear.
It's been the number 1 fear since it went in.
That's crazy.
And it was also, in the second year, it was the only item where more than 50% of the population reported that they were afraid of. Now this year, all of the top 10, more than 50% are saying that. That's been unusual until you hit about 2016, and that's when the overall level of fear went up.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was only fear of corrupt government officials. And again, I shouldn't be surprised anymore. We've looked at it for 11 years now, but it still surprises me.
So how did the pandemic affect people's fear tolerances overall?
Well, I'm the wrong person to answer that question because I got sick then, and so I kind of blitzed out for a couple of years, and I'm only getting back and looking at that data more closely now myself. I've actually been comparing, fear of murder went up because murder went up. Yeah. That was the one time where maybe fear of crime going up made sense, although property crime actually shot way down during that first couple of years of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Have you seen?
I haven't looked specifically into it. I think it's interesting, like we introduced questions about COVID after the pandemic, and so that was a really interesting to look at that data and how the fear survey is constantly evolving based on like certain things that are happening in the world. And I think that is a really cool factor of the fear survey, is that like professors,
it's a we. Like I said, this has been a student project.
Yeah.
They add questions that are very relevant, and that more fears and more things happen. Like there will be more questions about AI, hopefully in the future, and questions that like really gear towards current events. So that was interesting. Yeah.
So can we hop into the AI of it all now? Because I was shocked that it wasn't higher.
Well, I think it will be next year.
That's number 2 next year?
Yeah, I think it probably will shoot up. I think it's, for most people, it's been a thing out there, but they haven't really experienced it much. I think this is the year where we will really see the pivot, because this is the year where it's being suddenly shoved onto everybody's phones, whether they want it or not. You know, up until now, you had to decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and download ChatGPT and start playing with it, or Perplexity, or whatever one you want to deal with. Now it's just showing up everywhere, whether you want it or not. And I think now is when people are going, wow, I didn't ask for this, and I'm getting it anyway. So, and it's only through that experience is when people will start to see, oh, it's not right all the time, and that's when we'll start to see the pushback.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree. I think that in the next couple years, we will see definitely an uptick in the fear of AI, and I think that in every kind of area of life, we see it emerging more. Even in classroom settings, we're being taught how to use AI in a way that will supplement our education. And I think that is such an interesting thing, and I don't know really how much it's going to benefit us, if anything. If anything, I think that it'll push us to think less critically about things, because we have resources at our hands on our phones every second of the day that's kind of generating things for us to believe. And like you said, that it's not all correct. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is not from a real source sometimes, a lot of the time. And you don't really have the information to back up what you're getting from ChatGPT or other AI models.
So how do we see AI also increasing fears? I would imagine stuff like Sora is going to increase misinformation and disinformation. Do you see that only adding to our fear levels?
I think so. I as we were talking before we started the interview, I have a hard time telling deepfakes apart, and I think everybody's going to be experiencing that problem.
Right.
What I think we're going to see going forward is you'll probably see a real age split in how people fear it, and that would be something to look at next year too.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, even though younger people will be more comfortable using AI, you'll probably see more fear of it there, because it'll be younger people who will be first to recognize the hallucinations or the mistakes. It'll also be younger people who will be more impacted by and how it affects the job market, and the layoffs we're beginning to see now. And that's where we'll see real fear. It's like, okay, this isn't just impacting my daily life, this is impacting my opportunity to plan for my future. In my career and things, and it's a lot of uncertainty around that right now, and no sense shoving it under the bed. We don't know what's going to happen to the job market, and that uncertainty for younger people has got to be huge, and that's got to be adding to an overall level of angst.
Yeah, I think like personally, I'm very fearful of AI and how it is taking over a lot of things, and with the job market and other things, like it leaves a lot more questions up in the air of like, oh, what will be needed, and what will my college degree really go to use? Will it? And yeah, I think AI also tells us what we want to hear, and so we see that in social media, or we see that like in news about how AI has kind of pushed people to do things that maybe they wouldn't have thought to do so before, but they're getting advice from someone that's not a trained professional. It's not anyone. It's just this computer system kind of giving you information, which I think is dangerous, and I think that it will lead to more fears.
So you guys spend a lot of time talking about fear. Is there anything in this survey that gives you hope?
I think the number 2, I think that the fear of loved ones dying it does give me hope. Like, it does feel like we still care about connections, we care about our people, and that's one of my fears too. Like, I think that I see that in my life, and it gives me, like, yes, it is a fear, but I think that it is also hopeful that, like, we still care about people, we still care about relationships. Like, there's so much fear in the world, but, like, we can put that aside to have and maintain a relationship with the people that we love and support them.
And the other thing is, you're not alone.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not alone. This is bugging other people too. So, reach out and say, hey, this bothers me. Is this real? And should I be worried about that? Because you're not the only one who's going to be afraid of this stuff. And then the other thing to remember is that not all fear is a bad thing. I mean, a lot of this stuff is for fun. We still have Are You Afraid of Clowns?
And sharks.
And sharks, yeah. And that's, that's for fun.
Yeah.
We still go to Not Scary Farm, okay, to be scared, because it is a good time, and fear isn't something you always have to be afraid of. It is part of us as human, and because it's part of us as human, it is something that can be shared, and probably should be. And so we put this out. We put it out at Halloween to have a laugh and say, here's what people are afraid of. We do serious work on fear to understand how it relates to conspiracies and how people are being misled. But we also want people to know other people have these fears. A lot of times they're simply being manipulated. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated. And the way to avoid that is, well, one, put down your phone. But if you're not going to put it down, use it to actually look up real information instead of just being hammered by people who are sending out messages intending to manipulate you.
Right.
I think it's so interesting to see these connections, and even understanding it more, I think, leads to more awareness. And I think that awareness is kind of what we're pushing for, of people understanding the misinformation and understanding that, like, everyone also is afraid of something. Like, everyone has one fear. Like, mine is spiders and cockroaches and things like that, but I'm not alone in that. Like, so many other American people believe that. And so, yeah, I think that it is hopeful.
So do you guys have any parting thoughts that you want to share with the Chapman community just before we end this?
I'm glad we did this podcast because, we do all the interviews during Halloween week, mainly to promote Chapman. What people miss in those interviews is that this is originally student-led and driven project, and it's still largely a student project with people doing their theses, and people miss that. And I wish people understood how much it is student-oriented and student-driven, and it's a chance for us to work directly with our students. That's the real purpose of the FEAR survey.
Working at the Henley Lab and with this survey has been one of my highlights of college, and I think that it's such an awesome opportunity to be able to work so closely with professors and have this basis. And yeah, I think that there's so much in this FEAR survey that I would encourage anyone that's looking at this just to look it up online and see, because it's so interesting. Like, even if it's something that's like completely random that you have a fear of, like, seeing if it's in the survey and seeing if other people agree with that. So.
Yeah. And the other thing is that I think people are not aware of how these data are being used by scholars beyond Chapman, because as we release these data, scholars from around the world are picking these up and using them for research papers. I've lost track of the number of papers that have been published by other scholars, but it's somewhere north of 100.
Wow.
We can't even keep up with it anymore, but it is definitely brought Chapman as an institution to a pretty it's made it very noticeable out there in political science and sociology and the social sciences in general.
That's incredible. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
you.
Thanks for
Yeah.
coming by.